When most people think of James May, the first word that comes to mind is slow. The methodical host of Top Gear and the Grand Tour, famously meticulous and endlessly patient, is not the guy you'd expect to drop millions on a car. But here's the thing. James May doesn't collect cars to show off speed or to race to the next stoplight. He collects them for passion, for engineering, for the story behind every wheel. And when you see what he's built, you'll realize the man is quietly one of the most audacious automotive collectors alive. From Ferraris that prove Jeremy Clarkson wrong, to American muscle cars that are pure chaos, to rare prototypes even their makers forgot existed, May's garage is less about horsepower and more about heart, obsession, and a wicked sense of humor. Today, we're diving into James May's top 15 cars. And trust me, number 4 will leave you absolutely stunned. 1963 Chevrolet Corvette Split. Window, let's kick things off in America with what May calls the only proper sports car the US ever built. The 1963 Corvette split window isn't just rare. It's a one-year wonder, with only 199 ever built with the Z06 package and fuel injection. May didn't buy it for speed. No, he bought it to prove Americans can occasionally do sophistication. Under the hood sits a 327 cubic inch L84 V8 making 360 horsepower. Logical, precise, and uncharacteristically rational for something American, according to May. But the real charm, the split window design, which lasted just 1 year, perfectly embodies form over function, completely illogical, and therefore perfectly American. He found this Corvette in Montana, stored by a rancher since 1975. During restoration, the original Chevrolet training film was discovered tucked in the trunk. And in true May fashion, he insisted on keeping the original fuel injection, because modern carburetors would have been missing the point entirely. 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda convertible. Next up, America's most chaotic automotive expression. The 1970 Hemi Cuda convertible is one of only 14 built that year, and one of just 4 with a 4-speed manual. May calls it the automotive equivalent of bringing a nuclear weapon to a knife fight. The ultimate, gloriously American overreaction, with a 426 Hemi V8 officially rated at 410 horsepower. May claims the real output is closer to 500. And shifting? Forget about it. The pistol grip shifter requires forearm strength rivaling a professional arm wrestler. The comedy of ownership is legendary. The car was hidden in a Wisconsin barn since 1974. Its owner would sneak out every Sunday after church to fire it up, claiming he was checking on the livestock. Hidden bourbon bottles, handwritten logs, and obsessive paint restoration. May spent 6 months tracking down the original paint mixer to get the perfect shade of plum-crazy purple. 1979 Porsche Carrera GT3 right-hand drive. Captain Slow isn't always slow. The 1979 Porsche Carrera GT3 may be one of only 20 right-hand drive GT3s imported to the UK, and May bought it for purely scientific reasons. The 3.6L Flat 6 churns 380 horsepower. But speed isn't the point. May wanted to prove that modern Porsches aren't necessarily faster than the classics. If you know what you're doing. No power steering, no ABS, no radio. Just raw, unadulterated communication between driver and machine. The car was stored by a dentist in Sheffield, afraid of its reputation, and during restoration, it was discovered to be a factory development car with original tags and break-in instructions in German. 1963 Ferrari 250. This was May's first Ferrari, and he bought it specifically to prove Jeremy Clarkson wrong. The 250 GTE is a 3.0L Colombo V12, pushing 240 horsepower through 6 Weber carburetors that May insists require more maintenance than a British Royal. Car represents Ferrari's pivot from Racing company to luxury manufacturer, enabling you to bring children and luggage along for the ride. During restoration, May meticulously documented every part, creating what he calls a workshop manual for people with OCD. 1969, Ford Mustang Boss 429. The Boss 429 is America's answer to a question nobody asked. Only 859 were built, and May acquired it because Jeremy Clarkson claimed American muscle was rubbish. With a NASCAR-derived 429 cubic inch V8, the engine is so massive that Ford had to move the battery just to make it fit. May calls it gloriously, unnecessarily excessive. Stored in Arizona since 1974, this car came with original development notes scribbled by Ford engineers, and May restored it with obsessive precision. 1959, Bentley S2 Continental. Now we move across the pond to what May affectionately calls the car time forgot to ruin. The 1959 Bentley S2 Continental is one of only 388 ever built, and this particular example is possibly the only one ordered with both picnic tables and an experimental aluminum radiator. Under the hood, a 6.2L V8 produces what Bentley politely calls adequate power. The car weighs nearly 3 tons, but May insists that's part of the charm. 17 types of wood in the interior, enough leather to clothe a small village. It's unapologetically extravagant. Originally owned by a British lord who only drove it to his London club, the car had handwritten notes about which valet could be trusted. May found it in a dusty country house garage and recommissioned it sympathetically, keeping all the quirks intact, including the original radiator tests and engineer's logs tucked in the glove box. 1963, Studebaker Avanti R2 back to America, for what May calls the greatest moment of clarity before the madness of muscle cars. The 1963 Studebaker Avanti R2 is one of only 46 built with a supercharged V8 and 4-speed manual. May loves the car because it proves Americans can make sophisticated engineering when they're not obsessing over burgers and horsepower. The Paxton supercharger was decades ahead of its time, making this Avanti feel like discovering your grandfather invented the internet. Originally ordered by a California aerospace engineer, this car came with every possible performance option. May found it in Palm Springs, along with classified missile testing documents. Original build sheets and handwritten notes from Andy Granatelli were still tucked in the headliner. Proof that sometimes history hides in plain sight. 1985, Ferrari 308 GTB QV its time for a little Italian perfection. The 1985 Ferrari 308 GTB QV, with its carbureted V8, is the car May bought to prove Magnum PI actually had good taste. QV stands for Quattro Valvole, 4 valves per cylinder, and the 2.9L engine makes 240 horsepower. Every mile requires attention, warm-up routines, carburetor adjustments, and delicate maintenance. But May relishes it because it's pure mechanical engagement. The car belonged to a Swiss banker who only drove it on sunny Sundays, keeping meteorological logs. May found it with just 12,000 original miles, along with every Ferrari document imaginable. Restoration involved mechanical recommissioning, dyno testing, and obsessive historical documentation. May even wrote a 5,000-word article about why every detail mattered. 1977, Triumph Dolomite. Sprint. Here's something for the thinking driver. The Triumph Dolomite Sprint, or as May calls it, the thinking man's BMW. This isn't just any Dolomite Sprint. It's the development car used for British Leyland's racing program. It featured an experimental aluminum head and competition-spec Weber carburetors. The 2.0L 16-valve engine was revolutionary, world's first mass-produced 4-cylinder 16-valve engine, delivering 127 horsepower when it was working right, which May admits was roughly 3 days out of the month. He found it in Birmingham. stored by an ex-British Leyland engineer since 1980. Restoration was archaeological precision, preserving every original production fault because May believes they're part of the car's soul. Even rally pace notes were tucked under the carpet. 1969. Lamborghini Espada now. We enter the realm of rational madness. The 1969 Lamborghini Espada series. One is one of 176 ever made. And this one was originally delivered in what May lovingly calls the worst color Lamborghini ever conceived, a metallic brown. Why did he buy it? Because it's the perfect car for people who've read too many books and are now obsessed with logic. The 4.0L V12 makes 325 horsepower, fed through 6 Weber carburetors that demand patience and cash. But the real charm? This was Lamborghini's attempt at a family car. 4 seats, luggage space, and a V12 engine. May found it in Milan, complete with the original owner's philosophical thesis about why this was the perfect automotive art. Restoration uncovered experimental air conditioning, which he says works exactly as you'd expect from a 1960s Italian engineer who had never felt heat. 1973. Alfa Romeo GTV 2000 halfway through, and we hit a car May calls the only vehicle that makes complete sense while being totally irrational. The 1973 Alfa Romeo GTV 2000 is a European spec model with a high-compression engine and lightweight body panels. The 2.0L twin-cam delivers 130 horsepower, but only if you warm it properly, synchronize the carbs with atomic precision, and treat the electrics with respect. They follow Italian principles of occasional functionality. Originally owned by a Rome orchestra conductor who raced it between performances, the car even had sheet music still stuffed in the glove box. Restoration took 15 years, delayed repeatedly by the mechanic's love of wine. May kept the prototype parts on display, and the car runs on standard points because that's how Alfa intended it to run. 1968. Ford GT40 MK3. Here's the one you've been waiting for. The 1968 Ford GT40 MK3 is one of only 7 road-going GT40s ever built, and the only one with Ford's experimental air conditioning system. May calls it proof that Americans can build a proper sports car when properly motivated by revenge. The 289 cubic inch V8 produces 306 horsepower, exactly enough to terrify anyone. Leather seats, carpeting, air conditioning, all wrapped around a race-bred engine. Finding it was a scavenger hunt. Engine in California. Body in a barn in Kent. Transmission at an auction in Belgium. Restoration took 4 years, cost more than a new Ferrari, and every experimental part had to be verified by Ford Archives. 1963. Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. 3A car of sheer aristocratic absurdity. The 1963 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud 3 is one of 12 with experimental aluminum body panels and an unnecessary option list May adores. The 6.2L V8 produces smooth, subtle power, while the interior was handcrafted over months. Every panel bears the signature of the craftsman who worked on it. May tracked down the son of the original woodworker to ensure restoration was flawless. Originally ordered by a lord who wanted a drinks cabinet holding exactly 1 day's worth of gin, the car came with handwritten notes and a history of extravagant, unapologetic luxury. 1957, BMW 507. The BMW 507 nearly bankrupted the company. And now you understand why. Only 252 were ever built. And this particular car was used for BMW's European press launches. The 3.2L V8 delivers 150 horsepower, but the sound it makes is what matters. Like Wagner conducting an orchestra of precision machinery. Every panel hand-formed, every component meticulously assembled. This car is beauty over common sense. May found it stored in Switzerland since 1975, and restoration took 5 years, costing more than a house. He even tracked down an original assembly line worker who remembered this car for making the perfect sound. 1967, Ferrari 330. GTC, and finally, May's crown jewel, the 1967 Ferrari 330 GTC, which he calls the best Ferrari ever made, specifically for being the least Ferrari-like Ferrari. One of only 3 built with experimental air conditioning and sound insulation, the 4.0L Colombo V12 pushes 300 horsepower through 6 Weber carburetors. The power isn't the point. This car represents a Ferrari realizing that not everyone wants to pretend they're racing in Monza. Originally ordered by an Italian industrialist in a subtle gray, the car was meant to avoid attention, which, ironically, defeats the purpose of owning a Ferrari. Restoration revealed original factory notes complaining the car was too comfortable to be a proper Ferrari. May maintains meticulous logs, drives it regularly, and even wrote a 15,000-word essay about why it's perfect for a trip to the supermarket. And there you have it. Folks, James May's incredible car collection, from American muscle madness to British eccentricity and Italian elegance. Each car tells a story about engineering, obsession, history, and humor. May doesn't collect garage queens. He drives everyone, often explaining in minute detail why they're technically fascinating. The total value? Irrelevant. What matters is the joy, the story, and the meticulous obsession of a man who proves that collecting cars isn't about speed. It's about heart, knowledge, and a perfect sense of absurdity. Because, as James May says, a car collection should be like a library. You actually want to read the books, not just admire the covers.